Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the Fraser City Council special meeting for Wednesday, March 18th, 2020 at 1 p.m. Mr. Olin, could you do roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Member Carnegie?
Here.
Member Winniwicki?
Here.
Member Lesage?
Here.
Member Blanky? Here. Member Baranski?
Here.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I have a motion, and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would recognize any citizen participation on agenda items. We have 2 of them. If someone would like to speak and will not be here for the entire meeting, can now speak.
Did someone check the front door to see if anyone's standing outside of there?
Right.
Oh. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Mr.
I would rather be safe than sorry.
There's going to be a lot of questions.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, let the record reflect there is nobody standing outside the locked doors of City Hall.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Denault. At this time, I will bring it back up to council. Request for council action. Item 4A, approval of extension of local state of emergency in accordance with Section 10 of Public Act 390 of 1976, to declaration of state of emergency.
Would you like to speak to that here, and I'll move away?
Mr. Denault, would you just like to?
Mr. Mayor, I'll begin, and I'll certainly defer to the city manager and any other information he may have that I do not. For purposes of today's special meeting, state law and the city code, the Emergency Management Act, and then the city code that adopts that, authorize the mayor, you, to declare a state of emergency for a locality like the city of Fraser, but that power is limited to a 7-day window. Without council consent to extend that, it would expire by its own terms within 7 days. Now, obviously, we haven't talked about whether or not a mayor could just keep reissuing that every 7 days. Perhaps that could happen, but the better approach in municipal world circles is for the council to discuss and decide whether or not to extend it, and if so, for how long. What does it mean to declare a state of emergency? Well, the word itself is a bit alarmist, but it's the word we use in the English language for a situation or a circumstance whereby a community may need to call upon other resources that it does not have for itself. Whether or not we'll ever get to that point in the city of Fraser, no one can say. But this isn't a natural disaster. This isn't a calamity. This isn't an earthquake or a hurricane. This is something a little bit unique and different, and certainly unprecedented in modern city charter era. With that being said, the state of emergency declaration will allow and authorize the city of Fraser to call upon state, county, and federal resources should they be needed. Although we are technically within the umbrella of the county's declaration of emergency, the county itself reversed course on Monday and held or opined or decided that they were mistaken to say on Friday we didn't need one at the local level. They felt more comfortable on Monday saying it's best that we all do one at the local level, just so we have access to resources should they be needed or become available. Certain programs or opportunities might arise through legislation or otherwise, and if we haven't done the declaration, there's some possibility, probably slim, but some possibility that we may not be able to partake of everything that our neighboring communities could partake of. So with that, that is why that is before the council today on an emergency basis for a special meeting, because it does expire by its own terms within 7 days, which I believe, Mr. Mayor, is March 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. And with that, I would defer to Mr. O'Neill, should he have anything to add from management, public safety, or administration side.
Mr. O'Neill, do you have anything you'd like to add? No. Councilwoman Blanky? Yeah, you can make a motion.
Mic on?
You got your mic on?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of extension of local state of emergency. Turn your mic on, please. Sorry. I'd like to make a motion for the approval of extension of local state of emergency in accordance with Section 10 of Public Act 390 of 1976, declaration of state emergency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions on that motion?
I don't have a button, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions that have been presented to me by members of our public and I think are important to address in an open forum. The first question was why a 90-day extension of the emergency declaration?
I have an idea, but go ahead.
I did not choose the 90-day period. I'm not sure how that was decided upon. My guess is that based on reading the tea leaves from the federal and state and county levels, no one is anticipating this to end within the next few weeks. And for just, I suppose, for pre-planning purposes, the thinking was put it out 90 days, and if you have to terminate it early, terminate it early. If you look at the timing of it, it will end, if the 90 days is the extension, it will end shortly after the June city council meeting. So the June council meeting will be the perfect opportunity for council to say we'd like to extend it further if we need to. But also, if we're in the May council meeting period and we don't need it anymore, the council can end it then. But I think that's why, it's just because we don't want to have to call special meetings to adjust it every so often. Give yourselves a longer blanket period, and you always have the right to rescind it.
Second question.
And that can be rescinded by council at any time that we deemed it not appropriate for us or there was no benefits for the city of Fraser.
Perfect. This emergency declaration, one of the reasons is it ensures that if necessary, we had access to federal or state emergency funding. Is that correct?
That is right.
And if we don't declare this state of emergency as is recommended, we may put ourselves at risk for not being able to access those funds. Is that correct?
It's always a possibility, and I think because it's a bit uncertain right now, it's better to cast a broader net just to make sure we're captured in everything, because the people making the decisions may not even think of, what about the small towns that forgot to do a declaration of emergency, and they may leave us out. So rather than get left out, it's better to cast the broad net.
And then my last question, this declaration does not impact decisions that are made on our level with regard to closings or how we're going to proceed going forward with a whole bunch of stuff, how we're going to conduct meetings, access to City Hall, all of that kind of stuff. This doesn't mean we're going to be closed for 90 days, is that correct?
Correct. This just means that it triggers all of the emergency powers under the Emergency Management Act that the mayor, city manager, and city council would all have, public safety, and certainly higher levels like county and state.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Item B, consideration of direction to city manager to allow the placement of on-site temporary signage by businesses located within the city operating at a full or limited capacity and open to the public. Councilman Lessig.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I ask that this item be added to the agenda because we have a sign ordinance that does not allow for freestanding signage. And given that we have quite a number of businesses that are open to the public that have limited access or due to the governor's executive orders, I felt it was necessary to deliberately acknowledge that we understand that there's a problem, and this is a good way for people to remember that these businesses are open. We could have allowed the city to perhaps relax those, the enforcement of that, but I felt that saying it publicly and getting the word out as quickly as possible could offer these businesses some assistance. So with that, I would like to make a motion for the consideration to direct the city manager to allow the placement of on-site temporary signage by businesses located within the city, operating at full or limited capacity and open to the public.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Yeah, I think we kind of briefly touched on this on some emails we talked about, is what can we do to help the businesses in our city that are going to be struggling through this, and the ones that are closing but are still capable of doing carryouts. I believe we're going to be talking about some other ideas with other council people, Mr. Lessig. But whatever we can do to help these people during these times, we're going to try to do and see what we can do. And also, if there are comments at this meeting or any of the meetings going forward, because we are limited to what we can have, there will be an address posted that you can ask your questions online, and they will go to the clerk, and then she can relay those questions to us. And it will be public meeting at micityofFraser.com. That's public meeting at micityofFraser.com. If you have questions, obviously we can't have more than 10 people in this room. You're free to go online and ask your questions. Ms. Dolan is here and she will monitor. And at this time, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So as a reminder, every meeting, we will be asking if there are questions. Councilwoman Baranski?
So is that email up and running now?
I believe it is, yes, yep. Yeah.
And then what is the plan for that email? This is the first I'm hearing of it, so what is the plan for that email going forward? What is I understand the purpose globally, but what's the plan?
Plan is for a lot of residents who ask questions who can't be here or cannot be here because of the limitations we have. Those questions and bring up to a full council as to what their concerns are. And I believe we can probably, going forward, as long as there's no actions required or votes by council, that those questions maybe will be relayed to council at any time to make contact with that person to answer that question. Am I correct?
The intention was for the meeting,
Yeah.
and that'll be for the ZBA planning and recreation also.
Yeah.
As opposed to general business.
Right.
City questions. That's kind of what I want, because I could see that being flooded with broad general questions, and I want to make sure that I'm not answering something that's really directed to Wayne about,
Right.
something that has nothing to do with policy, but more implementation.
Yeah, these are related to the meetings themselves.
Perfect.
Councilwoman Blanky, did you have a question?
Thank you. Dad, did you want to say anything?
Oh, go ahead, I have a question.
Okay, I have a question also. So what I'm hearing, Mayor, is that even though right now City Hall is closed, we still are planning to have our regular council meetings?
That is correct.
Okay, and then at that time, still, the public won't be allowed in, correct?
At this time, it's required to no more than 10 people.
Right?
So we would have to limit that, yes.
Okay, so,
But it's public, so I don't, it's hard to enforce that and how we're going to do that and it's very complicated.
I understand that, and I'm just thinking, that was the question I was asked, that, we made the rule to close it down, and yet we have to do business, so I understand that part too, like public safety and the city manager. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, they're asking that we not congregate in more than 10 people. We have a full council, that's 7 people, the clerk, myself, and the city attorney is 10. So that, and you notice how we're all spread out. And we plan on doing that when all 7 council people are here. And we will be spread out like we are, so there really isn't room. So that's why we have for citizen participation, and this is all new. I know Donna's been on a conference call, webinars, and I think, Mike, you've been on webinars. I've been on webinars. Everybody's watching, because this is a very fluid situation. So when I say they can't be in here, I don't mean they can't be in here for a public meeting. Per what's going on with the World Health Organization and DHS and everything else, we're trying to comport with that and not have the social distance and everything like that. That's why we have the email addresses, so you can email in live, and then we will read those emails that are germane to the meeting to you out loud, so they are participating within the meeting itself. So that's where we're at with that, and whether or not the governor comes through with another directive or whatever else happens, we will be fluid on that.
Yeah, this is new to everybody, obviously, and it's a very fluid situation. It's changing, seems like every day there's different things on the different calls, so This is a time for everybody to work together, not get all upset over something that we may not even have addressed before. So we want everybody to be calm, collective. If you have questions, ask. We'll try to get those answers with council too. Things changing dynamically all the time. We'll do the best we can to abide by all the rules and everything that we have to do, but open communication is so important in these times. So I'm hoping that everybody can understand that. It's new for me. I've never, in my business, I haven't been on so many conference calls in my life in the last 2 weeks. So I believe, let's see. Don, you had something? Your light was flickering.
I just have a quick question. When we get back to addressing whether to vote on the motion, to put a duration on it or to put just while we're under the declaration of state of emergency? Because council can always extend it after the emergency ends if we feel that it would help business revitalize. But I do want a time period on it, otherwise it's indefinite, and we'd have to remember to go back and undo it.
Hold on, Mr. Lester.
Don, what is the date that the 90 days expires? Make it as consistent with that.
We could just say during the declaration of emergency. That way, if we extend the declaration down the road, this would continue. Would that make sense?
That's fine. I would amend my motion to add during the duration of the authorized state of emergency, local state of emergency.
And I second that amendment.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions on that? I did have one light on. It was the city manager's light. Anything else, Wayne?
Oh, that was me. So, no, let's move on with this.
Okay.
Get this done.
I have a question, but I would like to get this done and
Yeah.
then circle back.
That's what I want to do. too.
Agreed.
Great, thank
Okay.
you. So we have a motion and a second. Any comments and questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Councilwoman Baranski?
Okay, so now I have a couple questions because this is all new and this is all fresh, but you said things that to me sounded like they were done deals, and I don't think that was your intent, Mr. Mayor.
There is no done deal.
Obviously. So you had said that we aren't having a meeting with more than 10 people, et cetera, et cetera. And that was going to be the one thing while we are here, because I don't want any more special meetings than we need to have. The irony that we're coming in and exposing both the city workers and then ourselves during business hours is not lost on me or other members of council. But I want to make sure, or have some dialogue while we're here, maximizing our time. What is our plan going forward? And our city attorney did a great job laying out that it's unknown and uncertain. I thought, and I am not up to speed as of today, I thought that it was parties of 50 or less is the mandate. The 10 is a recommendation. So as a lawyer, that means we cannot say 10 under the law. We could say 50 because that's the state of emergency is gatherings, and I defer to our city attorney as it applies to municipality law. But I want to make crystal clear, because the last thing I want to do is draw litigation and or have to repeat and reinvent when we have our April meetings or when we have our interviews or whatever we have coming up. If we have to redo it because we violated the law, even though we're erring on the side of safety, I think that there are a lot of things that can be done to make sure the public has access to real time, whether it's setting it up that they come in one at a time, whether we put, there's a million things that can be done with technology now, but I just want to make sure that I am understanding you correctly and that the residents are understanding you. Nothing has been set in stone about how we're going to proceed going forward, other than we want everyone to be safe.
Right, and that's where I should stand too, because I don't know exactly how, but my main goal, sitting as chair, is the protection of our city and our residents and the health and well-being of them. And we'll take whatever action we need to, but as I talked to Don last night, some of the stuff he's gonna have to walk us through. I mean, this is new, and understanding, you're right, it's a slip of a tongue or the way you said one word, and I hope it doesn't get into that. That's why I said we need to be calm and not looked under a microscope. But Don, if you can answer to Ms. Baranski's question a little bit, but going forward, I don't know myself either, so.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a question in that whole statement that can be answered right now.
Fair.
Nothing is set in stone. Tomorrow is a new day, and if we get edicts from on high that change how we do things, we will change them. And as a city and as a council, if you collectively wish to change how we do things, that is your prerogative within the bounds of the law. I believe, and I think most municipal attorneys at this moment believe, we have considerable discretion in this state of emergency situation to bend, but not break, the Open Meetings Act rules and other rules like that. Freedom of Information Act is another fascinating question with the deadlines and timelines that have to be met. And there are many others. So we can bend them, and we can make sure that we account for the citizens having the right to address you and participate and observe you. But we have technology that didn't exist when the law was written that really helps us with that too. So it's every day we're going to have new edicts and new directives and new recommendations, and we're going to work through them. And we'll keep you all updated, and certainly the city manager and I are always going to be talking to each other too, to keep everybody informed.
So as we sit here today for the interviews that are supposed to occur next Saturday, what is the law and the rule in terms of how that would be implemented as of today, knowing it could change in 10 minutes?
The law is that under the Open Meetings Act, you should make sure it's an open meeting.
Okay.
Doesn't mean you have to be here in person. Just means that it has to be something the public can watch and observe and have some ability to address you, which we all call participation. So long as we achieve those goals, how you do it within reason is open to discussion. As you're seeing from my updates and around the county, there are public bodies that are transitioning into virtual meetings. Some communities don't have that luxury or that ability yet, but everybody's looking at it. The County Board of Commissioners is having their meeting today at 3 o'clock for those who are interested in seeing how it works. It's a call-in system. As a resident, you call the number, and you're on a call instead of being there in person. How that will work in practice, we have no idea. We don't even know if anybody will call. But it should be fascinating to watch as communities start doing this. City of Sterling Heights held a virtual meeting last night. The City of Sterling Heights, I believe, is going to be postponing or canceling zoning board and planning commission meetings, at least in the immediate future. So there's so many questions and operational decisions that have to be made, some today and some don't have to be made right now. For the March interview date, the council's going to have to decide if it wants to keep that date. And legally speaking, there's nothing prohibiting you from having it yet. The recommendation from the president and the federal government is 10 or less in a room. The governor's executive order about 50 people congregating, I don't believe applies to public body spaces, but I would have to double check that. Because there are a lot of exemptions still in the governor's orders. You know, a lot of businesses that are allowed to remain open, such as a golf course. They can't have on-site food and beverage, but they can be open. They can be open for golf. Salons are still allowed to be open. So it's just, it's a fascinating time to watch as people try to create rules that cover what we need to cover without going too far. Ultimately, again, it's a long answer to a question that has no answer. It's just, do you want to have the March 28th, I think it was the 28th, right, the Saturday, interviews? And if you do, how do you want them handled? And if you don't, that's a decision that you can't really make here today because it wasn't on the agenda, but you can certainly talk about it.
Would that have to be by vote? Because we voted, I thought, for that date. I remember we picked the date as a council. I can't remember if we voted for it. Does that have to be, because we created a meeting for that, right? Because we had to put notice and everything?
We did create a meeting, we did have a vote, and it was established by council that that's the date and time it wanted. We can't undo that in this special meeting without having put it on the agenda because we don't have unanimous consent from the other two that aren't here. But certainly the city manager, now that we have a state of emergency declared, city manager has a lot more operational authority. He can poll everybody and without taking a vote or violating the act, just decide, do we hold that? Do we move that? That's not debating public policy, so I'm perfectly comfortable with him polling all of you to see if we need to reschedule based on the state of emergency we're in.
Got it, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Don and I had already discussed that, and I think Don used the word as counterintuitive to invite somebody to a building that's closed. And will the respondents want to come? I don't know. You know, I don't know what they might want to do, and I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I don't know if it's a good idea. So I was going to call you. I have the stuff ready to go. What I needed to find out, though, is I remember that we weren't sure if it was going to be 9 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
1 o'clock.
Somebody was going to check their schedule and let me know.
We had to put a time per the Open Meetings Act, for sure. It's 1 o'clock per our motion,
So you're still at 1 o'clock.
correct?
All right, so I'm going to be calling about that and seeing whether or not you want to continue with that. So what do we do, and one of the questions I will be asking, what do you do if one of the candidates says, I'm taking care of an elderly parent, I'm not coming. I can't afford to do that, I'm not doing that. So I don't,
I don't mean to cut you off. Do we have technology where they could, I personally want to have the meetings because we cannot talk about, this is not going to end in 2 weeks or in a month, and we have been without a finance director for
I know.
coming on 4 months, without a DPW permanent position for, I don't even know how long. And if you're talking about not having interviews, unfortunately, to me, that's a piece of business that has to go on. I still have to go to court on certain things because they cannot be adjourned. But 100%, I don't want to penalize someone who cannot come in person. I personally, and I just want to say this so I don't have to say it to each individual person, I would like to find a way to accommodate them, whether they Skype in or Zoom in. I just did my first Zoom meeting yesterday, so that we have some progress forward. We may not find a consensus after the 28th on either of the positions. We may. I just don't personally want to table it. I think that is the worst decision we could make as a council.
I just want the mayor and the council to understand that we have a finance director and we have a DPW director. And the DPW director at this time is not going anywhere. He has not turned in his resignation, and it's my understanding he's still interested in the position. We have a finance director that's assisting us, so those positions are full. So, we've been getting through. I'm going to be telling you this when I call you, because you're going to need to know that. But again, it's a fluid situation, and I have one person that wants confidentiality. And so I'm going to have to call this individual, because once I start the phone calls, that confidentiality is out the window. And if that individual would come anyway, there's a lot of moving parts here. It's not that simple.
Well, that was my point. None of this is going to be simple going forward. I'll do the best I can. I don't want to be chastised for something I do for the first time it's going through. So communication is important. If you got issues, you got ideas, you got suggestions, let's talk about it. I don't want to read it on an email. I'd rather talk to it in person, plain and simple. Mayor Pro Tem, you had your light on for a little bit.
Actually, Don answered my question, and also previously, when you said to put a duration on it, that was going to be my recommendation as well. But my recommendation was going to be that it be during the period that the governor has stated it, until the governor lifts it. Whether we lift it or not, our state of emergency, and I'm assuming we would continue with our state of emergency through the governor's period, but my recommendation was going to be, as long as the governor's mandated that that the restaurants be closed and only carry out, that we go for that duration of the period. But I'm satisfied either way.
Councilman Lessig, your light was on.
Yes, I was on a webinar with the MML regarding operations, Open Meeting Act, how do we hold a public meeting? And the question came up repeatedly, how do we ensure that we are complying with the spirit and the statute of the Open Meeting Act? And so that is something that on Monday, they said that they were perhaps expecting something from the governor on Tuesday. I don't think that happened. So we are an arm of the state of Michigan. We are chartered under the state constitution, and the Open Meeting Act is something passed by our state legislature. So I will be looking to them for guidance, and I will we should all send them an email or a tweet that says, please help us have public meetings so that the public's interest is served, that under all circumstances, the decisions we make are made together in a public body and consistent with state law. We do not need to have any second guessing that we are doing something out of the public eye that we should not be doing. So that's my goal, and if you do hear anything, Don, let me know. You didn't say it in your comments, so I assumed The governor didn't call you, so, all right. Well, cross our fingers and hope that they give us that guidance, because minimizing that confusion will make the rest of our jobs easier. Then we have a set of rules to work under, so that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay, anybody else, any questions? At this time, I will ask for citizen participation. I see
You want to
none.
just double check the door? Better to be safe than sorry.
That's okay, thank you, Don. Okay, bring it back to council.
One more question, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Sure, go
And
ahead.
it occurred to me too late when we were in the process of 4A, when we were doing the motion. Do we have a, maybe Mr. O'Neill knows, I just can't remember with the flurry of things we've done this week. Do we have an actual written document that says council's extending your declaration of emergency, or is it just going to be done by the motion that we did here today?
There's nothing been written at this time.
All right, so the reason I asked that is because the motion as read into the record didn't put the 90 days on it. That was part of the backup. So for the minutes, can we go back to 4A for a moment and just ask if the maker of the motion and the seconder would agree to modify their motion to put the 90-day time period on it? I don't believe that was read into the record.
No, it wasn't. Okay.
For Mr. Lessig?
Just,
Yeah, with Kathy.
Mr. Denault added at the end of the motion, the 90-day, for 90 days.
For 90, or we can just make a new motion that that the declaration of emergency that was extended by council shall be effective for a period of 90 days beginning March 23rd.
Okay.
Actually, you had on the June 22nd, 2020.
Okay.
Suggested motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the extension of the local, state, and emergency in association with Section 10 of Public Act 390 of 1976, beginning March 23rd, extended until June,
22.
pardon,
June 22.
2/22, according to the declaration of state of emergency for 90 days.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, all in.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for coming in.